Now, let's go to our friends and foes segment. We got a group discussion for the foes. We're going to talk about the Von Erich family in world-class championship wrestling down in Dallas. Now, let's go all the way back to the beginning, Nate. Did you ever work with Fritz Von Erich, who was the patriarch of the family?
Never worked with father, nope.
Really?
Everybody else, Chris
That
included.
surprises me because he was still working when you started to go down there, correct?
Yeah, he was, but he was working. He was mostly in tag matches with the Freebirds.
Oh, right. Kind of comeback things.
Yeah.
Now, it's amazing how good his three oldest kids were, David, Kevin, and Kerry.
Yes.
They all just blossomed and popped the territory big time, didn't they?
Huge.
Now, which of the three...
Do you want me to expound on that? Yeah.
Please. Which was the best of the three? You worked all three.
David.
Which was the best?
David.
How so?
David could have been world champion and carried it and carried it off on the road. He was really good.
Yeah, I tend to agree that he was the best because back when I was a tape trader and would watch stuff on video, I saw him work in Florida as a heel.
Yeah.
And he was a great heel in Florida.
Yeah.
And you're right. He could have gone on the road and really adjusted his persona depending on who the challenger was and really made it work like you did.
Yeah, see, the difference between Kerry and Kevin, Fritz saw a vision for David and sent David from territory to territory. I traveled with David in Florida a lot and had a chance to talk to him. He was a great kid, and I mean, when I got the news about him in Japan, I was in shock because I never saw any of that with him, none of it. And I kept him out drinking every damn night, but I never saw any indication that he had a problem with the pills.
Well, but they're still sticking to the story that it was an intestinal infection or something like that killed him. But there's a lot of urban legend about that.
He couldn't regurgitate. He could. He was the same thing that caused Elizabeth to pass.
Now the big feud in world class.
He had been to what's that famous steakhouse over there?
Rivera.
He'd been to Rivera and ate a big steak and everything. Went back to his room, took a couple sleeping pills, and when he got sick, he couldn't regurgitate.
Now, the big feud in world class was the Von Erichs and Freebirds, which lasted, the best part of 5 years. And the big flashpoint was 1982, when Terry Gordy slammed the cage door on Kerry's head.
Yeah.
And that was during a title match against you with Michael Hayes as guest referee. I think that was on Christmas night.
It was.
What was that show like? Because I saw the video. The heat was incredible.
Full-fledged riot. Full-fledged riot. The only thing that got me through it was Manning, who was, Dave was crazy, not fearless whatsoever. All the boys came out of the dressing room. It was a crazy crowd. It was very similar to that night in Atlanta when we turned on Dusty, where the crowd wouldn't let us out of the cage. You know what I mean? So you're fighting for your life to get out of that place. It was the way it was in the old days. The cops were as big a fans as the fans, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So it's not like they were going out of their way to knock anybody out with a nightstick. No, it was a fight. That was the old Reunion Arena. It was a fight to get back.
Now, when the cage door slammed and it made this incredible noise, which was a big part of getting it over, did you know right then and there it was going to be big? Could you tell?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Kerry and I just had an average match, but a lot of drama. And he was so over. The fans just loved that kid. Like Ricky Morton in North Carolina, or like Tommy Rich in Georgia, or trying to think of very few people that had that kind of just, especially in their hometown. And they just loved that kid. And he was handsome and built, a great physique. And, we had an average match, but you would think it would have been like, what do you guys call it? Some big 5-star match. It wasn't by any means, but we did our usual stuff, the press slams. I whacked myself about 5 times. And Michael Hayes was great in it. And then the drama, the surprise was Terry coming down. But that led into so much money. Every time I was in Texas, that whole time the Von Erich family was healthy, we were sold out everywhere. And I mean sold out everywhere.
And that was a big part of your job as the touring NWA World Champion, wasn't it? To be the fulcrum of angles that you would then leave behind and would carry on. It reminds me of the one we talked about a couple of weeks ago in Mid-South, where Ted DiBiase turned babyface.
Yeah.
Like, you were involved, and then you left, to continue touring, but the angle kept drawing money.
With Murdoch and DiBiase, huge.
Now, Kerry beat you for the world title in May of 1984. That was Texas Stadium.
Yep.
45,000 fans. You alluded to this earlier, Nate, but was David supposed to win the title? Was that kind of a favor to Fritz because it would happen with David to give Kerry the belt?
I don't know if David. I don't know if David was always supposed to win it. I think that they had plans for him to become the world champion, but it was just an opportunity to celebrate David's life. And here's what happened. Because they were afraid it would be cold, they ran it at 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was 107 degrees.
Oh!
Instead of running it that night, we would have been sold out had they done it at night. But by the time Kerry and I got to the ring, they were carrying people off the field from dehydration. So it was a unique experience. It was Reunion Arena. I'm sitting there. I was changing in Randy White's locker. I mean, it was
Texas Stadium.
I mean Texas Stadium. I was changing in Randy White's locker. I mean, we were in the football locker room. It was really cool for me. And I told you the story the night before. I was in Portland wrestling Piper with Red Bastien. So I just got on a plane not knowing what to expect, but to walk into that was pretty damn fantastic.
Now, that wasn't a long match, if memory serves, was it?
We probably went 20 minutes.
And Kerry won with the backslide. That was kind of out of nowhere.
That's because we knew we could do that. There's a thought process behind that.
Now, you got the
Kerry was not feeling that well that day.
Well, we're gonna get to that in a second.
He was very excited.
But by the way, what a crowd pop that was when Kerry won. I mean, it definitely delivered the payoff, didn't it?
Yes, absolutely. People have forgotten all about the backslide. They just remember the moment.
Now, you got the belt back 18 days later in Japan, and we've talked about this before. You said that Kerry was supposed to have a longer reign, but he no-showed a date, and the NWA didn't want to take a chance.
Well, I don't know whether I can't remember. As I told you, I don't know whether he no-sold a date or missed a date or whether he was ill. I've heard, I'd have to go back and ask a few questions, which I could do. But all I know was that 18 days later, I was in Japan, and they called me and said, we're sending Kerry over. And I said, man, okay, that's pretty cool. What happened? And of course, you never know what explanation to believe. But it was, anytime I had a chance to be with that kid, he was a great kid, boy. He just so lovable and so nice, and but you could just feel you knew that there was something wrong. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure. And I met Kerry a few times. I was in the dressing room with them once at a TWA show in Philadelphia. That was the precursor to ECW. Yeah. And he introduced himself to me like 4 times. He kept forgetting that he had already introduced himself to me.
Yeah.
And I know other people went through the same thing.
That's why we use the backslide.
Well, let's stay with that, because there were quite a few times you worked with Kerry where he was impaired. I mean, there were some matches where you had to basically wrestle the match yourself, it seemed. And I saw a few on video, and Nate, I got to tell you, and I'm not making light of the situation. Given the circumstances, it was pretty good.
Given the circumstances, it was. But it's. One time we were in Fort Worth, and he came to the ring with his boots untied. He was 15 minutes late getting to the ring, and his boots weren't laced up. So, and we're going an hour. But I'll tell you how influential Fritz von Erich was. The next day, in the match was absolutely terrible. But when we did do an hour, and the next day, because Fritz had that much influence, it came out in the paper that Kerry had like 104 fever and didn't know where he was at, and just he was brave enough to face the challenge and to challenge me for the world championship, but he should not have been in the ring that night.
What do you do when you get to the ring and you're facing that
it was on
situation.
TV. It was on TV too.
Well, what do you do when you get to the ring and you realize the situation you're in?
I look at the referee and say, "This is going to be a long night." Truth. And David Manning was a great referee.
Now, Kerry had a decent run in WWE. He certainly had the look that Vince likes.
Oh my God, look at him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, very few guys looked like him. In fact, there was the rumor that if Hulk Hogan hadn't come to WWE, Vince was going to bring in Kerry to be the Hogan guy. I don't know how true that is, but certainly that potential was always there.
I've never heard that. I don't think Fritz would have ever turned Kerry over to Hulk or turned Kerry over to Vince. I don't think Fritz would have ever turned Kerry over to Vince.
Not even for that kind of opportunity, huh?
No, because NWA at that time was still bigger. You know, the governing body with Fritz and Eddie Graham and the Funks and Harley Race and Carlos Colon and the guys over in Australia and Japan. I mean, NWA was still a bigger product than WWE at that time. Now, once Hogan got there, of course, that took off like a rocket.
I always liked Kevin Von Erich, who was the lone surviving of the brothers. I thought he had a great look.
I talked to Kevin periodically. He's in Hawaii now.
Right. And he was a very athletic worker, acrobatic before his time. And he never really went off the rails like the other brothers, as evidenced by the fact that he's still around.
Yeah. A great kid. Stiff. Oh.
Really?
Those kicks. that running knee in the corner. Oh, wow. I believe he played running back because he ran over me every night.
Now, were Kerry and David stiff? How were they as workers in that regard?
Not at all. Whole different ball game. David was as smooth as could be. Kerry was such a great athlete, but he was very unpredictable. And he would go, I'll give you an example. I would say, Kerry, sell this, boom. I'd chop him to go down, and I'd turn around and turn my back on him for a second, which I've told everyone's fundamentally a mistake anyway. But I would think that he would sell it for a second. I would turn around, he'd drop me right in the head. I say, I didn't call that. Where do we go now?
The story where he lost his foot because of the motorcycle accident and kept wrestling.
Yeah.
I saw
that really cracked him.
Yeah, and that's a shame because I think if the people had known the truth about it, it might have made him a bigger hero to persevere after such an injury. Because I got to be honest, if there was a difference in his work, a major difference after that accident, I didn't notice it.
Well, it took him a long time for it to heal up, but nobody knew it. And he didn't change the boot in front of anybody. But I think anytime it's like my friend Mongo who's got ALS now, when you've been a world-class athlete, and Kerry was, he was only maybe 30 feet behind the world record in the discus at the University of Houston, when a guy named Mac Wilkins had the discus record of 230 feet. I think Kerry was throwing it close to 200 feet, which would make him a world-class athlete. When you suffer a loss or an injury like that, especially where you've basically lost, a hand or a foot, to me, I can understand why it cracked him. But the thing about Kerry, you can never say anything bad about Kerry. He was such a nice kid. But I've seen him. Hey, I'll just put it like this: he's the only guy I've ever seen that could hang with Roddy Piper. Ever.
What do you mean?
Okay, so we're on a flight to Europe. Road Warriors, Nasty Boys, Piper, all the Wild Bunch, right? We're going to Europe. Okay, so without saying names, they were shaving each other's eyebrows off while they were all cold and everything else, right? It was Piper and the only two left standing. I'm watching this because I only participated in the booths, as you know. The only two standing left because there was a superior competition going on with about 8 of the guys. The only two standing were Roddy and Kerry Von Erich. I used to call Roddy, what did I call him? John Wesley Hardin, the fastest gun in the West.
Now,
Only one John Wesley, but Kerry could hang with him.
now the younger two kids, Mike and Chris, they never should have wrestled, should they?
No,
And
no.
you
Well,
wrestled.
I'll tell you something funny. So this is where Mike, Chris, I didn't know he wrestled, but Mike, I wrestled Mike. The stipulation was we went to that 15,000 foot, that 15,000 attendance building in Fort Worth. I can't remember the name of it. And I had to beat Mike in 10 seconds. If I couldn't beat Mike in 10 minutes. If I
10
couldn't
minutes, right? I remember this.
If I couldn't beat him in 10 minutes, then Kerry got a rematch. And here's little Mike, right? Well, they were so over at the end of the 10 minutes, I cut myself and he had to claw on me. True story.
Well, that
We
was a
almost
good
had
match,
it.
but he just had so much problem mentally.
Oh, he was just
trying
too
to live up to
small.
his brothers.
He was Jack Veneno. He weighed 160 pounds. But those Von Erichs were so over that if I just got him down for a second, the crowd was going crazy. So I just said, David, just watch this. Because I was supposed to have him in a figure four, and he's being so tough, he wouldn't give up, right? So I said, screw this. And of course, they all hollered at me afterwards. But as we sold out the Reunion Arena a week later, or whatever it was, a month later, but he was so over that I said, I don't need to put the figure four in him. I said, Mike, throw me in the ropes, drop kick me, and go to take a roll outside, post me, roll me back in, and put the claw on me. So he threw me in the ropes, drop kicked me, which he was a good drop kicker. I rolled out to the floor. He threw me in the post. I zapped myself, threw me back in. I said, put the claw on me. He said, what? It's supposed to figure four. I said, Mike, just put the claw on me. He put the claw on me, and I fought it for a minute. The people went crazy.
And that was great.
The people went crazy. Yeah. Why would I put the figure four in a guy when they're tearing the building down, right?
Now, that territory fell apart in a hurry. It's a shame because it had great talent and great TV. We
Yeah.
talked about Keith Mitchell earlier. I don't know if it would still be around today the way wrestling's gone, but at one time, that was one of the biggest territories going, wasn't it?
Absolutely. They were deep in talent. They had Gino Hernandez. They had the Freebirds. I was there on a regular basis, like once a month. Chris Adams. I mean, they were loaded with Billy Jack Haynes was there, in and out. Trying to think. I think Lothario still came in once in a while.
Iceman King Parsons was there.
Yeah.
They get some of the guys from Memphis to come down, as I recall.
Yeah,
once
the
in a
King
while.
was there. Yeah, I mean, they had a great rotation, and Mantell was a good booker. Not Dutch. Ken Mantell.
Kenny Mantell, right?
Yeah, and good. Good. The thing that was sad was that we would talk about this. Ken and I would say, Ken, Jesus, Ken, you just need to go talk to Fritz, and having lost a son to the same issue those boys had, a little different. I'm not sure what their choice of chemicals was, but I mean, I was in denial, but my son wasn't getting in the ring impaired every night. You know what I mean? And Fritz just, he wouldn't hear of it. All you're imagining this. Not my Kerry, not my. You know what I mean? So we saw it. We saw it coming, never to the severity that it ended up being, but. It just, if you're working with Michael Hayes and I sat back all the time and think, Jesus, Mike, what the hell can we do? And there's nothing you can do when the father won't listen to you.